Record.
There we go. New technology.
Thanks and welcome for another edition of Catching Up with Lewis and Clark radio broadcasting graduates. Today we have the honor of being joined by some graduates from the 2000s. That is Joey Bradfisch and Nic Johnson, two incredible students from that time, and they're here with us now. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. Wow, I never thought this would happen. I never thought you said you would have the luxury of talking to us. I'm shocked by this.
Man, that photo that you used looks like I just ate Joey.
It was a photograph. Blame Joey for it because it was a photograph he sent me to use in a presentation to promote the program. So it's all his fault.
Yeah, it looks like I was just finishing like a final or a report on how to eat another full-grown human being. He looks like my child. You're like 17 pounds in that photo.
You know what, man?
My God.
I can't help it.
It's okay.
That's fantastic. So you guys are in Arizona now, Phoenix area. You're with a show called the JohnJay and Rich Morning Show, which is syndicated in several markets. Tell me a little bit about that show first, and then I wanted to kind of get into how you two, who came through the program at the same time, ended up back together out in Arizona.
Well, the JohnJay and Rich Show, it's an iHeartMedia show. It's syndicated by Premier Networks. Like you said, we're on in 21 markets, and it's a top 40 morning show. Pop culture, anything that's happening in the world, we're talking about. And we have 4 cast members of the show: JohnJay, one person; Rich, Kyle, who is a girl, and Suzette is a girl as well. And then we have a few players behind the scenes that are constantly talking on air and bringing bits to the air. And I've been here as of March 15th 11 years.
Wow.
And then Nic came on how many years ago?
Yeah, it'll be 6 years in May, the end of May. Yeah.
So how did that come about? How did you then, well, first of all, Joe, I know that you went out to school. You went to Arizona to go to school, and you got involved with that show here. When you were here, you did some things with some morning shows here, a Stephen DC show and some other things. Mm-hmm. You went out there. So tell me about that a little bit and how that happened, and then how Nic eventually joined the show and how that came about. Because it's pretty cool that you guys got to reunite there.
Yeah, that part is very weird, and this is also kind of weird too. This is something. First-year students, second-year students, never burn any bridges, okay? Never burn any bridges with the people that you work with, because radio is a very tight-knit industry. Everybody knows everybody, and they're constantly looking for good people. So basically what happened is I worked for the Stephen DC show from 2006, or no, it would be 2004 to 2006, 7? Anyway, and I worked with Tim Albright, who used to be the audio production teacher for the program, and then he decided to go back into teaching, and so I took over his role. And I worked for the Stephen DC show for a few years, and decided to, take a different approach and move out of Godfrey, St. Louis area, and came out to Arizona. And I did some other things for a bit. I kind of had a bad taste in radio for a little bit, and
as most of us experience at some point.
Sure, absolutely. And so I was like, no, I really, really love this. I want to give it another try. And I emailed Steve Shannon of the Stephen DC show. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about getting back into radio. Do you know anybody out in Phoenix? And he said, Rich Barra from JohnJay and Rich, he was our very first producer in St. Louis. He's from Florissant. And I was like, I listen to that show every single day, and just love the show. And then a few emails were exchanged, and next thing you know, 2 weeks later, I was working part-time. At that point, I worked for 6 months at an air conditioning company after the morning show, so I was working 14-hour days. And then they hired me on full-time, and 11 years I've been here, so.
And then how did Nic come? How did you join the show, Nic? How did that process go about? How'd that happen?
Yeah, it was just a weird kind of train of events. My now wife got offered her dream job in Phoenix. I had worked in Springfield and was doing nights for about 7 years, and she got Springfield, Illinois,
Right.
and she got offered her dream job here, and we were both kind of looking for a change, and so I actually hadn't talked to Joey probably not long after graduation, outside of a couple text messages here and there.
Yeah, probably 7 years.
Yeah. And I just called him and I was like, hey, how do you like Phoenix? Also, do you know anyone looking for talent? And about a year later, they had someone on the show that was quitting, and Joey texted me when we were already out here. I worked 2 jobs for a little while too, and then eventually kind of moved on to onto a bigger role, and here we are. Like Joey said, don't burn any bridges.
We have 3 St. Louis area people on this show.
Really? Well, because of Jay, right? Or Rich, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you guys tried to get on in St. Louis at one point, right? You was going to try to get on the Z107 morning show, which is also an iHeartMedia station. And I think people would still love to hear you here. And that morning show's gone through some transition. So maybe someday, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it's, the radio business.
Sure.
You just never know when someone's going to leave and who's going to be picked up next. We've only really campaigned really hard once. But yeah, I mean, that show is constantly turning. And actually another graduate, DJ Mike Keith, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was on the morning show there for a bit. And so hopefully one day we can get back home.
So we see your titles on the screen, and we know what you do. We know what it is. Tell people listening, go through the day-to-day a little bit, a summary of what it is that you do for the show, Joey, and you, Nick.
I would say my responsibility is the overall production and content of what's coming out of the speakers every day, managing the team, taking care of endorsements, sales, that sort of thing. Any kind of business dealings that are involved with the show that is ran through me, and you're dealing with iHeartMedia, and you're dealing with the subsidiary, which is Premiere, that syndicates our show, and they syndicate shows like the Breakfast Club, Rush Limbaugh. I mean, that was their biggest one, but obviously that's going to change here soon, and a lot of big national shows. So. Overall, just I've got my hands in a lot of different things. So morning's pretty crazy. And
Nick, I kind of already know what it is, what you contribute to the show, because that's your personality. That's your personality and talent. But you tell me what it is that you contribute to the JohnJay and Rich Show.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is I'm the head audio producer. So anything that needs edited, anything that goes on the air that's pre-produced basically comes through me. We have a couple markets as well that we have manipulated the show into more of a work parts format. So all the content that airs today in those markets, so they can air more music or run the show kind of the way they'd like to run the show, it would end, or the content from today airs tomorrow.
Gotcha.
So especially like days like today, where it's like tomorrow's April Fool's Day, it's a lot more work than you would think. So basically it starts at 4:30, and we're rolling and editing until noon. So
yeah, and we're constantly taping during spot blocks for segments, and whatever we can pre-produce to clean it up and make sure it sounds good on the air, we're trying to do that always. And our show starts at 4 here because we are on in the Central Time Zone, and the closest to you guys would be Alice 95.5 in Springfield, Missouri. So yeah, like what he was saying, he'll prepackage stuff from the day before later in the show, and then that'll air for the Central Time Zone the next morning. So
we're going to talk about your time at Lewis and Clark in just a minute, but
oh boy.
talk to us more about how the industry's changed just a little bit. You guys do a podcast after the show as well. You have to do all this other things with social media and the digital content that comes along with your show, and which is something that, you know, we've kind of grown and evolved and have taught that here as well. But we're also kind of leaping forward now too, and doing what we're doing now and teaching students video podcasting and how to create visual content to go on the internet. You guys do so much more than just radio, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, 10, 15 years ago, it was completely different in the industry, and now everything you do on the air is going to be a digital component. And like our podcast numbers, you know, the way people consume audio now is completely different. It's not just in your car, you're turned into a different station. A lot of people listen to our show after the show. We have an on-demand channel that's huge. I think it's 5th in the company, with Elvis Duran and the Breakfast Club and all these bigger market shows. And then you have the social media component. You know, our show, it targets a 18-34 female demographic. So, you know, we have to stay on top of the trends. You have to stay on top of what's going on TikTok, Instagram, what people are doing currently in that age bracket. And it's just all the time. It's not just, you know, a DJ with a Hawaiian shirt sitting down and doing a 5-hour show. I didn't even. Oh God, he's
Instantly, I feel attacked.
That's good.
I didn't think I would have to end this interview early because of you.
It was great.
Yeah, wow.
It was great to watch his response when you said DJ and Hawaiian shit. He's like, what? Yeah.
Except for Nick is an anomaly, so let's not worry. But if you're a talent in radio, you're doing all aspects of every medium at this point, and you just have to adjust.
Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that, I mean, when I got my first full-time job in radio, and it ended at midnight, like, that was it. It ended at midnight. Now, I mean, we're on the air until 10 o'clock here, but we still have podcasts to produce. We still have social media to go throughout the entire day, because the world never stops. Mm-hmm. And so your show needs to be on top of that as well. Just thinking about the fact that when I started, it was still like 3 years until Twitter was a thing.
Right.
And so it's constantly evolving, constantly moving, and the people who are paying attention and learning and striving to be on top and better are the ones that, you know, kind of raise their stock a little bit.
Yeah. And like I said, it's something we're doing. You know, we've always taught podcasting within courses, and we've done some other things, but, you know, you guys might be able to attest, you know, usually our equipment here is usually state of the art. It's usually as good as the industry, if not better in a lot of cases. So we wanted to make sure that we do that. And in some ways we feel like we're behind the curve a little bit, and we wanted to kind of fix that. So that's kind of why we're doing this now. So if we can move back to your time here, and even though the industry has changed quite a bit in the, 15 years since you've been here, as long as we're trying to teach those sort of things, what else do you think that we could do to better position our students for this industry, as opposed to what we just taught you 15 years ago, in addition to the social media and things like that we've talked about? What could be added there? What could we do differently from what you remember?
I mean, where it's going is you are constantly having to create content. Just look at the video model with Netflix, Hulu, streaming services. Our company has moved and is going to move even farther just towards streaming. They're actually redoing our building right now, and it's every studio is going to be essentially the same, but depending on the show, it's going to be bigger. But the overall setup's going to be the same. Where if we're in Phoenix, we can hit a button and we have a profile, and there are 5 TVs that show our logo. If we want to go to St. Louis, Missouri, into an iHeartRadio studio, it's going to be the same way. And they want to keep that consistent everywhere, so shows can just go wherever they want. And there are going to be cameras everywhere, so the show's going to be streamed. So it's like you're not only doing a radio show, you're doing it for Facebook, you're doing it maybe for Twitch, you're doing it live on Twitter, YouTube. Like it's going to be everywhere. You just have to make sure you're able to be there for all aspects of where any type of audio can be put out.
Sure. And going back to creating content, you guys had me on a podcast you guys do after the show, or I forget what it's called. Is it called After the Show? Afterwards. And I was trying to prepare for that a little bit and go back and research. So I went to the JohnJay and Rich Facebook page, and just going back through posts, and in one day, I think there were like, you guys had like 17 or 18 different Facebook posts within, which wasn't that late in the day. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much content that's being created and shared. It was almost a little overwhelming. And so, we have a promotion director here. We have production directors. You guys remember all that from when you were here. So it's trying to say, hey, continue to drive this content, and then still keep an eye on the content that they're delivering to make sure it properly represents the college and this program. So that is something that, is hard to try to convince students to do so much on top of everything else they already have to do. Joe, you were production director when you were here for a time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So imagine having those responsibilities that Nick may have now as a student and trying to keep up with that.
Well, society has changed so much since I was in college. Like, having a side gig is normal now. It's not like I have a side gig. Everybody has a side gig now, and it's not, oh, well, will you have this extra job, extra thing? It's like there's so many avenues to get revenue, and it's the same way with creating content too. Like, there are just so many places where you can put it out that you have to keep up with the times. And yeah, it can certainly get overwhelming at times, but at least what I try to do, and what Nick tries to do as well, is we try to make sure that whatever's coming out of the speakers of our radio show is top notch. And the other stuff, while important, we need to make sure everybody on our show is on our game at all times.
So let's go back to your time at Lewis and Clark, if we can.
Okay.
Let's think about what your fondest memories may have been when you were here, or what you really thought you liked about the program or really didn't like about the program. Just kind of share with us what memories you have.
I'll let you start with this one.
Oh.
Got to gather my thoughts here.
Yeah. Oh, man. I went to 3 colleges after Lewis and Clark, and I can honestly say that the only stuff I remember from any of the colleges came from the radio program. Mm-hmm. And that's not me, like, patting Mike on the back. That's just the way it is. At the time, I hated it because I lived 45 minutes away, and so it was like the longest drive every single day, because Mike was very specific that he wanted everybody there every day. And not just to be there for classes, but to be there to be around the radio station, so you are learning, so you are taking things in, and you are trying to building a community there as well. That was looking back on it now, it showed kind of who had the passion and who had the drive and who had the work ethic to, be there every day. Sometimes I would have to leave at 4 a.m. so I could be there on a Saturday for a shift I was filling in for somebody else. and it sucked at the time. But now I look back at it, and it's like I can't imagine that any other way. I mean, fondest memories. I loved music meetings for whatever reason. I loved the back and forth between kind of, at the time it was very like emo and kind of pop punk was really just hitting. And I remember there was a camp that was like, we need to play only Rage Against the Machine. And then there was like, no, I want to hear Fall Out Boy. And I still fell in that latter category, but that's all right.
Yes. Speaking to that, I remember we broke Somebody Told Me by the Killers and
Sugar We're Going Down.
Sugar We're Going Down, probably 6 months before anybody else was playing it.
Sure.
And it was like a P1.
It changed everything. Those songs specifically changed so much.
You know, I tell students all the time. We do those music meetings are still the highlight, right? That's still when we can get students to campus more and participate more. Everybody likes the music meetings, and it's always really been a vote. Everybody's kind of had their own vote. I've never really played a card that says no or yes. Except for Somebody Told Me. I remember everybody voting that song down. I was like, I think you guys are crazy. I think the song is going to be huge. So very rarely have I played the trump card, but normally I let you guys pick what's played under a certain umbrella, of course.
Do you still do the first year projects, like the interview projects? They're like 5 minutes long.
Yes.
And it was like kind of like an introduction to production.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, I hated that. I hated that so much because, like, if there's one thing that I'm still not good at, it's interviews. And at the time, like, I remember just like trying to contact anybody, just be like, can you please just talk to me,
right,
and make this easy and make sure I don't have to edit very much because I'm not good at it.
We're in the middle of that right now. As a matter of fact, the class that I had before I started the interview with you guys was that class. So we have first-year students going through that process right now, and they just critique their first shows. So it's weird that you mentioned that. And that show has morphed and changed over the years. And it's, you know, we've changed a little bit about what they do. But, yeah, that has so many parts to it. It's production. It's contacting people. It's doing interview. It's all of it. It's pre-show planning. Mm-hmm. All of it comes into one package, and it's frustrating that sometimes it's only 5 minutes, but you know that's just it. You're going to have to produce things in a certain time period, no matter if it's 5 or 10 or 7.5 or whatever. So it's kind of set up that way to teach all those things. Do you remember your top?
I meant it's really fun and it's good and
we have one of
you guys all love it.
We have one of those first years in the room right now who she's in here because her first show was probably better than most that I've heard over the years, so she's advanced. Do you remember the content of your show, Nick? Do you remember what your show is about?
And do you have it?
I don't know.
Okay, thank God. No, it was the because I couldn't pick a topic because it was like do something you're passionate about, and I was fresh out of high school, so I was like high school sports. And, like, even that, it's like you're talking to, like coaches from high schools, and, like, it's not like they're, like, winning state championships every year. Like, right. They're from Southern Illinois high schools. But, yeah, I remember that. I remember that very vividly. I don't think I've ever sweat as much as I did during those interviews.
Joe, do you remember your show?
I think it was a production house in St. Louis that I went to, a video and audio production house. I think in Clayton, something Dog Studios or something like that. I remember being very nervous about that as well.
Yeah.
But I want to springboard off that. Like, so when someone gives you an air check or is giving you, like, say, this project, we were giving you mini discs. Which obviously not a thing anymore. So, like, how is that process now? Like, what?
Oh, wow. So it's now it's they, especially since COVID, it's they convert the file to an MP3 and submit it as an assignment on Blackboard, which is an educational tool that people use for remote learning and web blended learning.
Okay.
Yeah. So now they upload the file. I grade it right there. The grade goes into the grade book, and it's right there. It's all done and seamless, and it's pretty easy.
Wow. they have no idea how good they have it.
They're the two sitting here in the room with you now say mini disc. What the hell is a mini disc?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell them. Can they hear me?
They can, yeah.
Hey, I'll send you mine, and you can figure out where to play them because I still have them. If you want to know the history of Carnival High School football, I got you.
I remember thinking that mini discs were going to be the next big thing. Here are like CDs, but they're small, but you can record and delete from them. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And then
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. and it went nowhere, right? But you, we were ahead of the technology. We wanted to have the newest
That's
and
true.
greatest stuff, and at the time, mini discs were pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, Joe, do you have I say Joe a lot. I always called you Joe here, and we called you Bradfisch here because it was a song at the time, and it just kind of fit. All your production says that too. There's still production in our system that says Bradfisch.
There's music coming. I don't know what's happening there. COVID, man.
Somebody just got the vaccine. What in the heck?
Nobody's even here.
Yeah,
so
there's literally. Hold on.
I feel like someone's playing a joke on us.
might be.
Joey, talk amongst yourselves.
What were you asking?
I was going to talk about your time here. We called you. I was starting to say Joe, but
Oh yeah, with that's crazy. I still have a lot of that production, and I listen to it sometimes because it wasn't that good, and it makes me see where I've come from. But you were talking about equipment. I remember my studio had Pro Tools, had an inbox, which
yes,
there are many colleges that, I mean, especially back then, that did not. Nick,
I'm turning it down.
That didn't have that great.
That's okay. I'm picking up my audio too out of his headphones. So this is just going to be a part that we edit out anyway.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's all right. Now we're good. There we go. So the
All right, where do I
question,
go?
Joe, the question is this. Pull me back in. So Nick kind of referenced sometimes we were talking about the 5-minute shows. Is there a particular memory that you have, Joey, of your time here? Something funny that happened on air, or sometime you got really mad at me or something? Or is there something that you think of or that you can recall that says, here's a memory I think about when I was at 89.9?
100% the 89 Hours of Christmas, which I did with Mike Ryder, and that was incredibly hard. And it was incredibly hard because we made it hard. We slept 4 hours of the 89 hours, and towards the end, we were out of our minds, which was kind of fun, but also probably not that good on the air. And I think at that point, we had raised the highest ever, and obviously that has changed. But I was really proud of that, and that was in my second year, like towards the end. But I think my favorite just overall aspect of the program was you allowed us to be creative. You allowed us to screw up. I mean, there were certain times on the air where you'd call us and be like, yeah, I don't know about that. And
Was it always that nice? Yeah, I don't know about that.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
But I think at one point you got upset with me and Ryder because Ryder and we did the Friday Night Drive, and then Nick and Adam Stroke did the Friday Night Drive-In after us, and Ryder and I would constantly play Green Day's Jesus of Suburbia. Do you know why we would play Jesus of Suburbia? Because it was 9 minutes long, and we could go out and smoke cigarettes and enjoy our time.
Right.
So I think at one point you're like, yeah, I think you're playing the song way too much. There's no way people are requesting it that much. And we're like, yeah, maybe we ought to dial it back on Jesus of Suburbia here for a bit there, Ryder.
I've been in radio for like a long time now, and I've never gotten chewed out worse than Mike Lemons after he was air checking a Friday Night Drive-In, and for whatever reason, I remember that Adam and I this is a really creative bit, mind you, karaoke song of the week. and we would play it, and we would sing over it. And man, I remember giving you the mini disc to air check us that day. And the fire in your eyes was like as hot as 1,000 suns. It was like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? I shouldn't let you back on the air ever again.
Oh wow!
Because it wasn't just that it was us singing over a song. We were singing over Hanson Mbop, and you're like, that the song doesn't even fit this format. And I was like, that's fair.
Nick, I don't ever recall getting onto you about anything. Is that just bad memory on my part, or what?
You probably have blocked it from your memory. I mean, I think that was the worst time. The only other time that Mike Lemons yelled at me, but it was a collaborative verbal lashing, was we were playing football in the hallway in front of the studio, and we almost hit the president of Lewis and Clark.
I remember that.
With the ball at the time, and you were like, everyone get in here now.
Yeah, that wasn't a good moment. Yeah.
No, it was not. It was not fun for anybody.
But look at us now.
Look at you now. So I love the fact that you guys are doing so well. Thanks for allowing me to highlight you. You know, we've done a few interviews now. We got several more planned. We're lucky enough to have several people being very successful in this business. And part of the reason is because of guys like you, is because I can point to people like you and others to say, here's what's come from the program. And that's kind of led to other successful people coming in and then doing their own thing. So I want to say thank you for that. And do you think this program prepared you for your entry? Obviously, things are a lot different now than they were then. But did you feel that you had that? Did you feel you knew more than maybe others did at that when you left?
There's no question. There are skills that you applied when we were there that I still apply today. The thing about the program, it was on the job. It wasn't just sitting in a classroom. I mean, we did that, but like I said, you allowed us to just be ourselves and molded us into the best version that we could be of ourselves. And just hands-on training, extremely valuable, because when I started at Stephen DC, I mean, I was a 19-year-old kid, and it was a nationally syndicated radio show, and I just slid right in because of the skills that I obtained from the program. And I want to thank you because, I mean, I would not be where I am today without you. So,
well, I wasn't necessarily fishing for that, but thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I truly mean that.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on what you guys have going on. Nick, I see the family is growing, and it makes me smile every time I see a photograph and see you as a pop. And you got your fur babies, I think, Joey, on the other side, and
yeah.
you've got some other things going on. I think you do some photo booth things and some photography things,
Yeah.
and it's just so exciting. And I can tell you that it's a breath of fresh air to look at social media and see things that you guys post about your lives as opposed to political stuff and conspiracy theory stuff and all the hate and vile that's out there. So you're the reason why you guys are the reason why I love social media, things like that, is because I get to stay in touch with people who were a huge part of my life for 2 solid years. That's the other thing about this program, right? You meet people that you know forever. And it's been one of the blessings over 27 years I've been doing this that I get to know and follow people's lives like yours. So congratulations to you guys. Tremendous success. Keep it going. And we may have you guys pop in like this to maybe teach or critique a class at some point if you guys are interested.
Oh, yes.
I was going to say, literally any time.
Yeah.
Maybe after this interview, you're going to regret saying that. But it would be the pleasure of my career.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been great catching up with you, and we'll chat again soon.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.